everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this panel on the promise and challenge of converting unused spaces. Okay, we have 4 great panelists today, but before we get started, I just wanted to know a little bit more about the folks in the audience. How many of you are farmers or operating some type of vertical farm or greenhouse? Raise your hand. Okay, we have a couple. And how many of you are aspiring to be an urban farmer or vertical farmer, greenhouse operator? Okay, so a few aspiring folks. How many people are investors looking to learn more about this industry? Couple of people, okay, and the rest of you are just fans, I guess. Okay, great. So we have a lot of fans out there. Excellent. Okay, so our 4 panelists today, I will just introduce them very briefly, and then they'll get a chance to introduce themselves. First, here we have Judith van Heck from a community builder for Indoor Farming Netherlands. We have Jens, and I'm not even going to try and say his last name, from Nabo Farm, which is an urban farming company based in Denmark. We have Jerome Doucet. He's the CEO of Montel, which is a mobile racking system. And Su Zhang from PRIVA, who's the Technology Partner Program Manager. So first of all, I would like each of you to introduce yourselves briefly to the audience. And tell about yourself and the work that you do in this industry. So, Judith.
Thank you. My name is Judith van Heck. I'm community builder of Indoor Farming Netherlands, and we are a collaborative that helps the Dutch businesses to professionalize their business on especially indoor farming. So we do that by a field lab where research is done, and demonstrations, webinars, events, all kinds of presentations we give.
Excellent. Thank you. Jens?
Yeah, Jens from Nabo Farm. Nabo means neighbor in Danish. So basically we're looking at small to medium scaled urban farms, very closely intertwined with city living. And we're operating 2 farms in Copenhagen. And on the other side, we are developing softwares and other technologies to help make it easier to be an urban farmer.
Okay.
My name is Su. I am from PRIVA. As PRIVA, we have a quite large network of different product groups, and my role is to make sure that our development innovation is catching up with what's happening in the industry, but also at the same time to look forward and to bring those new development and innovations and bring them back into our portfolio. So that's basically what I do.
Thank you, Jerome.
Yes, good morning everyone. Jerome Doucet from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. One of the main reasons I'm in Amsterdam was to see the Rolling Stones last Monday. Anyone were looking to see the Rolling Stones in the audience? No? You see? So Mick Jagger decided to cancel the event, and there's 2 rumors. One, he had Corona, and the other one, he had too many Coronas. So yes, Montel is a manufacturer of identity storage system. We have installations in 74 countries, and in 2016 we did equip the first medical cannabis grow operation in the US, the Grove, and this is where we decided to go after vertical farming, and this is a growing market, exploding market for us. So we have 2 divisions, identity storage and vertical farming.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. So if we want to see vertical farming increase in cities and urban areas around the world, there's sort of 2 sides to it. One is the political side, and then after that's kind of the technical side. So this first part of the conversation, we're going to talk about the political side a little bit, and then we'll transfer into the technical side. So each of you guys are from, or each of you are from different parts of the globe, essentially. Some of you from Europe, some from Canada. Please tell me a little bit about the political climate towards vertical farming in your area. Anyone who'd like to start, please go ahead.
Greg, yeah.
Well, I can start. Being a grower, you spend a lot of time growing, so you try to be really good at that, and you don't think too much about politics. But I think we were talking about something where, like, if the mayor came and said, like, why should we have a vertical farm here in the city? I would say, do you want like local workplaces, meaningful jobs, low-skilled jobs, which is super important, like just getting a job in a supermarket nowadays, you're like a supercomputer, beep, 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 like that's not really a low-skilled job anymore. And like, I think there's many value propositions to what the dynamics of having an urban farm can do in terms of culture and inclusiveness, which I think is really big selling points, and not just the crop itself.
So you set up 2 vertical farms in Copenhagen. Was that process, the regulatory process, was that difficult, or was the city actively trying to help you? Are they actively trying to see vertical farming promoted? And
I guess in 2017-18 they didn't really realize there was something like this, so we just, went ahead and did it. Fingers crossed. Asked, like, shut before, like, we invited them in after we've done it, and food safety inspection said, well, we don't know which box to put you in, but I guess we can put you in these, and it looks very fine. So it was more like, let's do it, and let's let the politicians come and tell us what to do different afterwards.
Okay, great. Jerome, you're working in numerous countries around the world. How do you see regulations around vertical farming? Are municipalities and states, countries trying to promote it? What do you see going on?
Yeah, I think municipalities and cities have to be facilitators. They need to help future, the 21st century farmers. They need to make sure that there's renewable energy close by the facilities. They need to make sure there's enough power supply close by these vertical farms, because obviously it's a different need in electricity. So for sure we need their help, and they need to make it easier in order to save space, water, and power.
Okay, great. And Sue or Judith, would you like to give us perspective on the Netherlands?
Yeah, well, I wear 2 hats, so I have the Dutch hat and the Chinese hat here as well. Well, I wanted to start with a more general kind of approach to this topic. Urbanization is something that we're not able to avoid. It's happening at a very fast speed as we speak. 400,000 people are migrating from suburb areas, rural areas, to the cities each day. And by 2050, there will be 70% of our population urbanized. So in that case, urbanization as a topic, as it's on our agenda, so it's on every politician's agenda. Yeah. So this is a general overview of why we need solutions to feed these mega cities. But at the same time, if you look at China, for example, China has been developing in an immense speed. They are catching up in enormous speed. If you're comparing mega cities in China and what's happening there, you see the same kind of trends, urban farming trends, vertical farming, exactly the same thing, because the challenges are the same. It goes back to fresh, affordable, safe food availability to the people living in this city.
Is the Chinese government investing in vertical farms in cities, or is it just entrepreneurs who are doing it?
I think from both sides, yes. China is opening up. Of course, especially in agriculture, it's not a government-controlled sector. It's a free sector as well. So there are quite a lot of entrepreneurs entering this sector. If you look at Alibaba, for example, what they're doing at this moment, it's how much involvement it is there in agriculture is crazy. And if you like if you look at the city level in Shanghai, for example, infrastructure was built in a completely non-seen way before, comparing to the European infrastructure. So yeah, they're bringing all these things into consideration. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Judith?
Yeah, I think in the Netherlands you see that the government is really supporting all new possibilities on sustainable food production, and indoor farming is one of it. So they're really supporting this with knowledge, research, everything we can do in that, working together, and make sure that we are not only have this knowledge in the Netherlands, but that we can expand it to other parts of the world. It's needed even more.
Okay, great. What do you think how do consumers see food that is grown in vertical farms? And maybe you can all discuss sort of like your location or your experience. Do they care that produce is grown in vertical farms? Do they even know stuff is being produced in vertical farms? Obviously, customer acceptance is a big part to this. So please, tell me your thoughts. Anyone who'd like to start?
I think people realize they are contributing to a better planet, safer and better fresh produce, improving the shelf life of the produce, reducing the distance from the grow field to the plate. So there's a conscience there, and I think all cities should have a vertical farm, and even all residential homes eventually should have their vertical farm. So
I think I experienced I think I started fiddling around with this 2015, 16, and there was in Denmark we are working a lot with ecological certified stuff. It's really a thing, and that's a lot about taking care about the soil, and really when you come and then you say, but this has no soil and there is only this light, it's just but it cannot be the same thing, right? And for me, I have no education to tell them or data to actually, prove that it is not the same. But those questions year by year became less and less, because at the same time the climate crisis became more and more, in your face. So I think people still have that question: is it the same? But it's just they kind of ate that and said, well, this is an alternative, and we need alternatives. We need to have more food. We need people working on different solutions here. So it might not be that I have the proof that it's the same as if it's the sun, but it's less relevant to me now. And if it's affordable and accessible, I'll definitely just choose that.
You mentioned the climate crisis. We know that vertical farming is very energy intensive, right? How do we address that in vertical farms? Because I don't think most consumers aren't aware of that, but it's something we as an industry need to communicate, that this is a problem we're trying to face and we're working to improve it. We can't just ignore it and, focus on, this is the freshest product. We have to be, I think, transparent about both the good and the bad in the industry. So how do we deal with the climate crisis and promoting vertical farms at the same time, which seem to be sort of moving in opposite directions?
Sure. I wanted to just bring in a sense of innovation here, because this is maybe a little bit technical, but energy is something that's the biggest critic. Energy consumption for vertical farming indoor is probably the biggest critic we get in this industry. I think there's a lot of things we can do there. for example, what we do at home, in PRIVA, is to create a digital twin of your facility. And there's a lot of possibility to do that already, to create a digital copy of what's happening in your operation. And there you can run multiple simulations of your operation strategy. You can adjust your energy strategy and just to see where is my energy going into and where I can save them. And at the same time, there are so many innovation on the market at this moment as we speak. Look at how electrical cars, like that industry, how far they've been through and till now. There are many, many things available as well, and bring those expertise and those knowledge together and help us to create a better energy strategy as well. I think that's one of the things we can do for sure.
Yeah, your biggest cost is going to be the lighting and the HVAC. So optimizing energy is very important. Renewable energy is very important. These facilities, again, must have some tidal turbines close to a river or a lake, solar roof that we can use as power to lit the lights. So renewable energy is very important in these operations.
Okay, great. Judith, going back to the previous question about how consumers see produce grown in vertical farms, what's the Dutch perspective?
Well, we just did a survey in the Netherlands, and what we see is that the younger generation is really enthusiastic about vertical farming, about indoor farming. They think it's a really future-proof way to produce our food, and they can even imagine that they are working in these businesses themselves. So not only consuming food from indoor farms, but also working in indoor farms. I think that's a major asset from indoor farming as well. And we see that the older generation is a bit hesitating. They think it's a really high-tech way of producing food. But I think that's maybe a problem in general. People are not aware of how their food is produced. They are interested in the taste and what it costs, and that it's healthy. That's what they are concerning about. And in other places in the world, they're more concerned about their food safety, but it's not really an issue in the Netherlands. We have plenty of food, always there, and people are actually not aware of what is needed to produce all our food. Yeah.
I think I fall into the older sector, but I'm enthusiastic about vertical farming, so I'm bucking your trends there. Jen, you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to add a little bit also to you were talking about how can we justify also the energy use, and I think it's a big, I'm talking against myself here, but basically they are super expensive, resource heavy still, the controlled environment farms. But I think it's more about, for me at least, it's looking at what is it that this local environment, where can we add something? If they already have a lot of this or have a greenhouse tradition where they get a lot of this kind of greens in, what kind of different flavors can a vertical farm add? Because we have the controlled environment, we can add different crops to the market, which is super important because people are getting banged in their head about they need to eat less meat, more greens. But they're going into the supermarket and they're seeing the same bell pepper and they're like, God damn it, what do I do? And it's like, so we need to add more flavor. We need to take from different geographic locations, take some of the stuff that's not traditional for that cuisine and put it in there. That's where you can actually all of a sudden have the value, the higher value of the crop, because this is not something that's normally in the market. So in that sense, we have to look at what is the cost of this and say, well, I can't do salad, it's a bunch of greenhouses here, but I can do this thing that's not there and take a higher price because people are willing to buy this. So looking at the energy, being realistic about it, will help you also maybe choose the crops or, the reason that you're doing the farm that you're doing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it comes down of grams per watt or grams per square footage. And those who succeed will survive. So that's most important. And
it does technically.
Yeah.
But to run a farm, you need people, you need you need a market, you need all of this. So of course we can optimize the yield per square meters with the systems and the technology, but you still also need a healthy business. And I think that's what we also really need to talk about, because technology sometimes is trying to solve everything ahead of time.
Yes.
And right now we have very few commercially viable urban farms. So maybe we should start looking at what is like stopping them to become self-sufficient. There's definitely technology that would help, but there's also politics, and there's resource management and collaborating with the restaurateurs or the supermarkets, finding out why are they not willing to pay this, or what do we need to do for them to work with us. Just an example is that we have a lot of import-export of, for example, herbs in Denmark. They all come in cardboard and plastic in small cups. And when I went out with my product to my local market, I came with a harvested crop in a different box, like a 100 grams box, and they're like super confused. There's only 100 gram here, but I'm getting like a kilo over here. But when we take that emballage and packaging away, and we weigh the raw netto product, there is only 100 grams in those boxes. So it's also like changing the minds of the industry, the people who are going to buy these products. I agree. Both things are super important, but.
And the evolution, when you look at HPS to LEDs, there's still some great improvement in the technology the last few years. And now we're talking about digital electricity. So it's fascinating to see, these new technologies. I don't know how much energy we'll save with digital electricity.
Yeah. We'll talk about technology in 1 second. One last question before we move on to the technology section. What, in your opinion, what's been the biggest mistake or the biggest, faux pas that the vertical farming industry has made to date?
Well, I don't know if it's a mistake, but maybe the thought that vertical farming is the silver bullet to solve the real challenge we're facing, namely a sustainable food system. And I think it can contribute to that challenge. And actually, the whole problem is not in this northwestern Europe part, but we have the ability to innovate on this new way of how to feed the world and see how we can feed those mega cities. And I think indoor farming can be a part of that. But it's one of the whole set of solutions we need to realize the sustainable food system globally.
So really looking at food systems and food questions as a toolbox, and having vertical farming be just one tool within that toolbox. Okay, great. Anyone else?
I think I really agree with you, Judith, because I think vertical farming is not a one solution for all solution. We think like, we're going to move everything into vertical farms and it's going to help us with sustainable production, but that's not the end solution. It's going to be one of the verticals to help us to get to that point. And urbanization is what we are dealing with right now with the growing population and the expanding size. But if we look at what kind of mistakes that are being made, I think vertical farming is actually making the same mistakes as a lot of new industries as well, which is just doing your own things. If you look at how many startups are there closing doors, with their eyes like this, and NDAs after NDAs after NDAs, and not sharing with each other, but at the same time making the same mistakes over and over and over again.
So a lack of openness, a lack of standardization in the industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's also what your work and Thomas and everybody else's here's work is so essential here, is to create that transparency and the bridge to talk to each other, because the greenhouse industry didn't do that. The greenhouse industry is if you look at all the companies here, open doors, all the technologies, come and talk to us. Come to my competitor. I want to show you what my competitor does. This is a different atmosphere than vertical farming. And we should move towards to that country. Was it? How do you say that? Collaborative
Yes.
nature, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree. Each grower most growers that I know, they all have their own recipe, and I think they need to share more their mistakes. I've heard often that they would have designed their facility another way. I've heard clients losing their full crop, because they built just one large room, and if they would do it again, they would have separated smaller rooms. So at least you're not losing your whole crop if you have a fungus issue or bacteria. So it's important to isolate the rooms, sealed rooms. So sealing rooms is also important.
Okay, moving on. Thank you. Moving on to the more technical side of things. What do folks see as far as looking at cities, unused spaces? What are the spaces that are most adaptable to indoor farming, or you see as the easiest, like the lowest hanging fruit that we should be using in cities for vertical farming? And what are there technologies that are sort of like on the horizon that are going to really help enable us making use of those spaces?
Well, I think if you look at the whole value chain, it's really interesting if we can manage to create vertical farms, for example, next to distribution centers of big supermarkets. So that will be a great place to grow your food and make sure that the connection is really tight between retailers, the places where people actually buy their food. So make sure that the places are really connected to one another, and that people can actually see how their food is being grown. Yeah.
So really locating vertical farms in the spaces where we can take advantage of efficiency.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, close down factories. Like in Montreal, there's a project. It's apparently going to be the largest vertical farm in the world. It's an old flour factory, and it's silos. And they plan to convert that in vertical farms right in the old port of Montreal. And underneath, there's going to be a public market. And just behind the silos, there's the river, so they're going to use the tidal energy to feed the silos. So I think that's an interesting concept. There's even some churches in Quebec that are unoccupied. The ceiling is high. Maybe there's another vocation for some of the churches. So in any high ceiling buildings that are shut down and close to renewable energy should be looked at.
Yeah.
Is it possible, maybe Jens, you can talk about that, to operate a vertical farm in a small space? Can we take advantage of small spaces, or do those operations need support by the government to operate?
Yeah, so that's a little bit back to my point earlier. It's a lot about the purpose of the farm. So, like, is this contributing, this is a part of maybe a logistical chain? Or is this like a communal, like in a maybe rough part of the city where you could take an abandoned warehouse and convert it into something where people can interact with it? Mm-hmm. Or is it like a more modern office building where you operate in the basement, where you surplus the cantina in the building and the surrounding cafes and stuff? For us, the basement is a reality right now where the farm is only with the whole operation only 300 square meters altogether, and we have 4 stacks. And we're about to we have a small team, but we are actually close to being a break-even. So the synergy between the landlords that were building the building is a very new building. We contacted them a year before. They took places that were supposed to be like storage room legally, and then there was a change, and then all of a sudden this is empty space. I think the bike parking lot next to is bigger than our farm is. So this is bringing fresh food to that building. One of the tenants, 2 stories up, works in the farm. So like this is for me like it's not solving everything, but that is the kind of contribution we need to make. A lot of small solutions that really are individual farms that has a specific purpose to where they are.
So really a way to activate empty spaces and connect the community in those areas. So
Just to add, like, sorry, the parking lot, there's laws about how many parking lots you need. When you build a new building, there's laws about how much parking space, and usually you go down with that. I think you can park in our farm, you can park like 5 cars, if you look at it like that. It's just like, why? Like, we need to do, maybe dig bigger holes and have farms. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to add in one thing for all the farmers out there, for the urban farmers out there, is to make sure you have enough technical space. So not just the growing space, because that's of course where all the cultivation is taking place, but from a supplier point of view, make sure the building or the existing building you have or you plan to do your cultivations in have enough space to do your technical installations. That's what we see all the time. Oh, we have 5 containers, want to grow 5 containers. But what about the rest of the equipment? Where are they going to be located? So this is something, please make sure when you do your planning, talk to someone who has experiences and plan those things in as well. Yeah.
excellent. Do we have any questions from the audience? We'd love to have a few questions for our panelists. Don't everyone raise your hand at once. Here we go.
Thank you. Yes, I was in the second group when you asked who aspired to be vertical farmer. The question is, maybe you can, any of you can tell us a little bit on how to convert the unused spaces. So what would it need to happen, and what things we need to store, and any tips to start with vertical farms? Thank you.
Just really quickly, just low minimum, I think, would be drain in the floor. Possibility to seal it off, like seal the growing environment from another environment. Like you need workplace, office space, and then you need farm, and then you would really preferable you would have access to you choosing the power provider, for example. So like really, like just in raw minimum requirements. There's a lot more, but.
Just
like maybe you can follow up.
For as a reminder, I think the solutions in vertical farming is versatile. So please make sure that when you don't think in a box like this is what I have to do. There's a lot of flexibility in all the solutions, but do have the bare minimum requirement. The structure of your building has to be good. How old is your building? What is the structure is made of? Is the insulation, is it well enough?
Insulation,
temperature-wise, humidity-wise, but at the same time, imagine all the different equipment coming into your room. Is it going to have its space, like all the pipes, if you're doing any type of irrigation? Where
actually,
is it going to
humidity
throw?
is like a huge one.
Huge problem.
Like that's a lot of farms have really hit a brick wall because they moved in, and as they scaled up their production, the bigger it is, the more humidity becomes a really, really big issue because it's especially if you have a colder climate outside, or like the requirements for the HVAC system just goes crazy high and becomes a really big problem.
And we talk a lot about vertical farming, but there's also horizontal farming. We see some stacks and empty space, wasted aisles, wasted space between each row. So the lights are lighting empty aisles, so it's important for the static racking to be condensed, collapsible, so you're not saving energy, but you're optimizing energy, so you're really maximizing cubic meters. So
things on wheel, like you need a flat surface, like things on wheel are a total saver when you want to optimize your space. Put stuff on wheels. It's really do it from the start.
Okay, I'm going to make a quick plug for our company, Agricture. We deal with hundreds of entrepreneurs like yourself who are looking to get into the industry, and so we answer those questions all the time. So check out our website. There's a lot of resources for you, for folks who are looking to get into the industry. Any other questions? Okay, I think it's, one more. There's a microphone coming.
Thank you. Just a quick question for Judith. How does you talked about the consumers, how does the nutritional content of, let's say, organic versus vertical farming stack up?
Well, we're still working on the correct figures on that part. But what we see is that in an indoor farm, in a vertical farm, you can really control everything. So you can also manipulate the vitamins that are in the crop, for example. So I think in the near future, we will see that we can produce more valuable fresh food for consumers, and that we have another promise to consumers than just fresh, healthy food.
I'd like. Did you finish? I'd like to add that when we get asked that question a lot, is soil-based food or hydroponic food more nutritious, better for you, et cetera, et cetera. It's really, when you think about soil-based food, people like to categorize it. Oh, soil-based food is this, but every farm is different. Every soil condition is different, right? How the farmer, what they use for nutrients for their plants. So you really can't make a blanket comparison of soil-based versus hydroponic. You can make a comparison of the individual farms versus hydroponic or versus a specific hydroponic farm, but I think what Judith said is really important, is that the potential to have much more control over what that nutrient content would be is one of the exciting things about vertical farming or hydroponic cultivation, is that there's a lot more potential there moving forward. I think we need to wrap it up, but everyone, if you could give a hand to our panelists here, thank you so much. And I'm sure they'd be happy to answer questions later on. So thank you.